Hi, everybody. Welcome back from lunch. Thank you for joining me today to hear my talk about Jenkins and Ansible Tower and how CI/CD works in that process of those two tools working together. I always like to start my talk out with this. How many of you know what Ansible is today? Raise your hand. Oh, awesome. Keep your hands up. Don't burn them down. How many of you use Ansible? Awesome. All right. How many of you actually use Ansible Tower? Fair enough. I expect nothing less than that, honestly. So a lot of this, these slides, one thing, I'm an engineer. I hate slides. So I wanted to spare you guys the boringness that are slides. So I only have like 5. It's a refresher for those who are maybe new to Ansible, because believe it or not, quite a few people don't know what Ansible is. And very few know what Ansible Tower is even further after that. So I'm going to talk about what Ansible is and what it does, and how Ansible Tower works in that full-fledged process. And then I'm going to show you a quick demo of Jenkins calling Ansible Tower, and why that's a better approach than just Jenkins and Ansible. I can speak to that because that's what I did at my prior job before I actually joined Ansible as an employee. So with that being said, we'll jump into my first slide. What is Ansible? We like to describe Ansible as a simple automation language that allows you to model your infrastructure or environment in a playbook. It is also an engine that runs that Ansible playbook. And then finally, Ansible Tower is a framework that sits on top of Ansible that continues the automation. Because for all of you that know what Ansible is here, Ansible is a runtime engine. It isn't an engine that has a cron built into it. In most cases, you either use a cron built on the system itself, or you use a tool like Jenkins to continuously run Ansible core, as we like to call it, as a part of your pipeline process. So Tower is that framework that we write against the Ansible API that drives automation continuously, as well as keeps it fully controlled, secured, as well as automated fully end-to-end. And of course, this is not going to work. There we go. So there are 3 things that make up what Ansible is today. 1, it's simple. For all of you that know, playbook is dead easy to write. It's a bunch of key value pairs in YAML syntax. Doesn't require any special coding. The only coding that comes into play is if you're going to be writing modules to fit into Ansible that don't exist today. We're around 650 modules now to date. That doesn't mean that one doesn't exist that couldn't help you out today. So if you were to write a module, most modules that make it back upstream are Python-based. If they're Windows, they're PowerShell-based. But you can write a module in anything. Tasks are executed in order by default. In the latest version of Ansible, we have other strategies that allow you to go in a free-form strategy where it will go and do whatever it can at one given time. Or based on how you write a strategy, it can do that as well. And finally, as such, you can get productive very quickly. I tell people it takes maybe 1 to 2 days to write a very basic playbook and start automating their day-to-day tasks. If you think of Ansible from an ad hoc nature, you can also do very simple commands out to 100 hosts. For an example, I had about 150 MySQL database servers that I managed at any given time in my prior role. I used Ansible to reach out to all 150 of those databases and query them with a single query, return that value back to my system so I could do some transformation analytics on my local system. So those are some of those kinds of ad hoc things that you can simply do with just Ansible as language and engine by itself. That being said, it's very powerful. It's not just a configuration management system. I cannot say that enough. We get pinned into being a configuration management tool. I like to say that we're more an orchestration tool or an automation tool more than we are just configuration management. I can attest that, yes, we do configuration management very, very well. My whole environment was built with just completely Ansible. But we do identify that there's the others out there. The cool thing about Ansible is because it's an orchestrator, it can orchestrate those existing systems. For instance, we have a Puppet module that we ship. So there's nothing saying you can't keep Puppet in your environment and just have a playbook that calls that Puppet agent, tells it what it needs to do at that moment. When it's done doing the work that it does great, return the information back to us, Ansible, to carry on with an orchestration and automation process. So that being said, you can do any workflow that you can think of, and you can orchestrate the app lifecycle, which is what we're going to be talking about today. And then finally, it's all agentless. Everything's done over SSH or over a network connection via API or a simple system level call. It can go way down to that level if you need it to. And then on the Windows side of the house, once again, everything's over PowerShell and WinRM. So technically, you can say we're actually leveraging those connection protocols as agents, but we don't have an actual agent binary running on your system at any given time. So that being said, nothing to exploit unless we have another Heartbleed type situation or another SSH issue that may arise, because we all know they're probably there. Everything is efficient and secure. So Ansible Tower. Once you have the simple, powerful, and agent approach of Ansible Core, then you take Ansible Tower and throw it on top of that. With that comes the control. You're scheduling and centralizing all of your Ansible playbook jobs and runs. You have the knowledge of what is happening for each job run, for each ad hoc call that's made via Ansible Tower. It logs everything: who did the job call, what time was it done, how long did it take, what was changed, what wasn't changed, what credential did they use, what host did it go after. All of that is logged by Ansible Tower. And finally, delegation. This is a point where IT groups that are siloed in the old world, we'll say, are allowing access to servers that they may not have allowed access to. If you think of it from a PCI compliance standpoint, Ansible Tower is a great tool for PCI compliance because it allows IT site reliability engineers, sysadmins, whatever you want to call yourself, giving dev the ability to have access to the systems, and you don't have to deal with the extra logging that comes along with PCI compliance, all of the security prevention measures that you have to go through. All of that is audited and logged. You could actually, theoretically, take the data that is provided by Ansible Tower, generate it as a report out of its API, and say, here you go, auditors. Here's my results of everything that was done in my environment because everything was done through Ansible Tower. So once you have Ansible Tower situated, innovation is accelerated and enables you to drive innovation across the business because you're no longer a cost center by doing deployments manually day to day. We all know that a disconnect still exists from after build and test. How do I deploy it to production systems in the same repeatable manner that is done in the development environments? Ansible solves for that, and Tower helps enable that. Scalability comes into play because you don't have my laptop, for instance, as an Ansible runner. You're centrally driving it from a mechanism via Tower to do that automation. You can have multiple Tower environments pinned to their specific subset of inventories and have it run at that time. It makes it simple to scale because Tower is very easy to manage, just like Ansible is already. Keeps everybody accountable, but it still allows for automation to occur. And it allows the community-driven efforts within an organization. It isn't the throwing the wall over the method that everybody is used to and what we're trying to avoid now in this new age of operations. It allows for teams to collaborate together on their playbooks. I can attest to that. In my last role, we had playbooks that we shared across both dev and ops. Everything was gated by, we used Garrett. Garrett was our check-in mechanism for all playbooks. The only thing that we would keep separate from team to team was our variables that we would ship along with our playbooks and our roles. One pitch from us, we have Ansible Pest coming up in Brooklyn on the 11th of October. We'd love to see you all there if you can make it out. that way. See us at the Red Hat booth if you would like a code to get a discount on tickets to attend. It's at the Marriott Hotel in Brooklyn. I don't know if there's multiples, but if you want any more info, come see us at the Red Hat booth. And with that, we're going to jump right into a demo. So I didn't want to tempt the demo gods today, so I did a video of this, and I'm going to walk through it. It's a quick 1 minute 30 video. And of course, let's see why it did this. Doesn't like presenter view for some reason. All right. So one thing that I'd like to note is what we're working on with CloudBees is very concept stages right now, but wanted to prove that conceptually this will work. So what we're showing here is from within the stage view of a build, we're going through the process of building a very simple Java app. And that Java app is called Game of Life. The CloudBees folks uses it to do data all the time, so we kind of agreed that this would be the best platform to show. So in stage view, you can see a build and packaging of the artifact occurred. Then we published it to S3, and now we got to a point just a couple seconds back where it prompted us to what environment we wanted to deploy to. So we clicked the development environment, and now you can see from within inventory this demo environment. It's just one host in AWS. But now that we have our playbooks in play and the inventory that we're targeting, you can see now that the job is already automatically running in Tower, being fired off by Jenkins. And you can see, because everybody knows what Ansible does, it's a desired state machine, it flew through it and did the upgrade process very quickly because we prompted it through in Jenkins. And it creates that ability to go in the true CI/CD model and show from dev all the way into deploying, theoretically into production, how simple this is with just the click of a button. So we're super excited because Ansible Tower was designed to be that system to accept API calls and allow systems to leverage Ansible as a runtime automation tool. Also giving access to those hosts that may not have had access before. Because now in Tower, which I'll show you in just a second in my actual demo environment, everything that's been done as we've been testing is logged. We can see what was changed, what did and didn't work. You can go down to the task level and see what failures occurred. And you can actually have a conversation based on those deployment paradigms of what went wrong with the deployment, why is this artifact not deploying correctly, so on and so forth. The eventual goal is all of that data that lives within Tower will go back to the build output. Also, any jobs that live within Tower will also be visible within Jenkins as well. So there's going to be a lot of sharing of data back and forth of the two tools because that's what Tower is designed to do. The reason why that's better than Ansible Core is Ansible Core as a runtime engine just by itself requires you to have Ansible installed most likely in every Jenkins master or slave, however you operate, right? That also requires you to put the credentials to access those systems on the Jenkins server, and that may not be the most secure approach. So what you're doing with Ansible Tower is leveraging a mechanism that has those credentials stored secretly and safely, and just leveraging that connection via API. So let's jump over to my Tower server, and I'll show you what this looks like. So from a Tower perspective, you can see this is my demo environment. This Tower server is actually on Google Cloud Platform. So we were having fun with this. The Jenkins server at one point in time was Azure. The system I'm deploying to is on AWS, And the Tower server that's doing the deployment was in Google Cloud, so we had this multi-cloud scenario at one point. So we were having fun with that one. From an inventory perspective, because we're using the dynamic inventory script that comes from AWS, you guys saw a snippet of that. Tower has the ability to automatically pull in nodes at runtime. So theorized here, a Jenkins job could theoretically kick off to a job template within Ansible Tower to spin up new instances. And as a part of that run, a refresh will happen by Tower to update the inventory. Once that inventory is updated, then it could break out to actually do the deployment. So you have the ability now to spin up new development instances to actually prove a build. Once that build is proven, then it could kick back to Jenkins and give an official stamp of approval. It's a little bit harder to do it with Core. Yes, it can be done. I did it myself at my prior role in some cases. But having Tower in the middle as the glue for all of that automation to occur, that approval process works a lot better because the data transcends across all of the services rather than being broken as it would be in Ansible Core. So all of that data that comes in from an inventory perspective, you could actually use that as part of the build within Jenkins. All of that data will be provided back to them. And then from a job template standpoint, you may have noticed in that build that we actually called the development environment as a target. You can see here that was passed as an extra variable. So what you didn't see is there was a drop-down for development, staging, and production. We could actually change that. And that could go to two places. One, it could actually update this extra variable if we wanted it to, or we could have it limit it to an inventory. So as a part of a full-fledged CI/CD cycle, you could say that once approval occurs, if you wanted to drive a deployment from within Jenkins, you can now, because you could just change the drop-down to point to production. That is mapped back to Ansible Tower, and Ansible Tower is aware, okay, I'm limiting to this inventory, which is production, and it's getting hit with this set of job templates. And it will go through the motions. And that allows you to have that singular deployment process that we all know and love with an Ansible playbook. And then you can see what credentials are used because those are tied to the specific job template as well. And then let's say that for some reason it failed, which, while we're testing, we figured that out ourselves. Nobody should be afraid of failure. Failure is a good thing, because within failure, you'll figure out what needs to be automated further. In our case, with our failures, it was figuring out how the hell to deal with S3. And we were having a lot of permissions issues with it. So we had a lot of iteration on my playbook on how to solve an S3 permissions issue. And we were able to go back and forth as two separate teams. And we worked very well, I feel, in that process, because we didn't have to sit on a phone call with each other. They could do the development on their side for what they were interested in, and then when it fired off to Tower, I could come back later and say, oh, actually, it was this that failed as far as Ansible is concerned, way after the fact. I think it was like 4 hours after the fact, or even at one point in time, it was the next day. It allows teams to collaborate over time just because everything is centrally logged. And you can see everything that you know and love from Ansible Core by itself is here in the forefront in Ansible Tower. The standard out that you know and love is there. From a Ansible plugin standpoint in Jenkins, it's a little messy when it comes back in the console. The goal that we're going to be obtaining with the Ansible Tower and CJE plugin is a much cleaner, easier, and legible set of data points coming back from Tower to Jenkins to help the build process go along. And then finally, to show you the actual website. You can prove that it really is the real deal. You can see this was the website that we've been deploying to. And each time we do a deployment, you'll see the new build number come up. Should we tempt the demo gods right now? See if everything works as intended? I think we have a chance to do that. Let's give it a try. So let me pull over my dashboard for Jenkins. All right. So going back through the process, here's our nifty little job. I'm get logged in. Okay. So let's fire off that job. Let's look at the stage view. All right, so we're seeing it go through the process. You guys saw this earlier. Let's actually look at the log output and see what's actually happening. So we're doing the build and test. And now it's gotten to that point where it's prompting me to what location I want to deploy to. So from within Jenkins, I'm clicking, where am I targeting my deployment? Remember, this is an extra variable, but theoretically, this could be a ---- limit. The same parameters that you send to Ansible Playbook on Ansible Core applies here in Ansible Tower as well. So we're going to hit the go, go, go button and move on our merry way. And now you can see, for concept, we're leveraging Tower CLI, which is a great tool that you can have installed on a Mac to integrate against your Tower environment, because I hate GUIs personally. I do everything through Tower CLI myself. As such, we're leveraging that right now just to show the connection. You can see we're launching a specific job, pinned to its ID, and then we're monitoring that job right now. So you can see the current status of this job is pending. It's actually running in the background right now. So if we go over to Tower and look at jobs, you can see the job actually just completed right now. And you can see the result of that completion. And when we go back to our web page, if we refresh this, you can see the build number updated. And we can keep doing this over and over and over again, just to prove as a concept that this can be done. And really what we're looking for is your all feedback on what you would like to see. What are some questions? And that's kind of why I'm here. It's not me dictating to you this is the way to have it done or bore you with another marketing ploy. It's really a way to jostle your minds on thinking about how this could work, because we're very eager to get that feedback. The example source code for which? Are you looking for the playbook code, the Jenkins? Okay. Basically the whole package. Yeah. We'll see what we can get you. Not too sure about the Jenkins plugin code or what we could do there, but we can definitely look on that. But what we can give you are links to Tower CLI, how that works. That's a great place to look. Think of it as like a library for the Tower API. And then any of the playbooks can definitely point you to those. No, we're not. It's just a script calling Tower CLI at this point. But that's what we're talking about, is the intent of we're going to be making a plugin together. This is, we're soliciting feedback, so to speak. In this case, Pat, is this an AWS instance that we ended up running this on? How about the Jenkins, the CJE? Is that? Yeah, so this is AWS. And this CJE that you just saw is AWS. Earlier, we did it in Azure. So it doesn't really matter where it lives. Great question. So the question is, security-wise, how is it ensured that Jenkins authenticating against Tower is secure? So in order to authenticate against Tower, it has to be a user that lives within Tower. whether that is an LDAP-controlled user or it's a user driven from our database, it has to be provided as an auth from Jenkins into Tower. So, yes. Yes, it's all over HTTPS. We don't operate on non-HTTP protocols. Correct. But you could actually pontificate in this case that everything is internal to your data center. So if you have an on-premise CJA instance, as well as an because Tower is not a service. Tower, I should mention, is only on your own premises, behind your own firewall. You're allowing the two to talk to each other over your WAN. The only public facing that needs to happen is, let's say, a part of your playbook, you had a package downloading from the internet. That's the only place. It's the node itself that you're managing needs access to the internet. Tower itself doesn't need access to the internet by any means. Correct, and it is secure. The Tower CLI call is secure because Tower is only accepting secure connections. Great question. Do you want to see my SSH key? I can show you my SSH key. And for the CLI, that's a config parameter in Jenkins. At this point, it's a config parameter. So what we're going to work towards is a much more secure, maybe a token-based auth method. That's what we're working towards in Tower already anyways. So there's a lot that's coming into play. Tower CLI is just a configuration file that is tied to my user in Tower. So that's how that works. But from a Tower method, now what is Tower using? It actually is leveraging my private key that I have installed on the Tower host. And then you can actually see that it's encrypted. So nobody has view access of my private key ever, even myself. I'm logged in as myself right now as an admin user. I can't see it once I import it. So that's the cool thing, is everything's encrypted at time, all the time. It's only at runtime by our application that it gets decrypted to do whatever it is over SSH that you need to be doing. Do you have a way that I could quickly show the Jenkins file, or could we show that to them at a later date? Oh, it's in your, okay. Let me put that down. And then where did you put it? Let's see. It's kind of hard to see. There you go. So here you can see it. And you can see, like, right there, I'm asking my partner at CloudBees, like, I had no involvement in this process whatsoever, but now if you think of it conceptually, right, we're two separate teams working on this together, doing our own things that we're working on as subject matter experts, right? Their credentials, they're actual two environment variable fields within the build itself at this point. Because I can't stress enough that this is not what it's going to be. This was just like the concept. Yeah, in the plugin it will be encrypted and probably just a secret access token, most likely, is what we're going to do for auth. Because interestingly enough, in Tower, we already have a read user that goes over secret auth. We just need a write user or an executor, more or less. So that's what we're working on right now in development. Yes? Scroll up. Sure. Oh, up. The other way. So yeah. We're hoping within the next couple of months. We're actively working on it with each other. Great question. So how many use Ansible Vault here today? Okay. So Vault will be included. I don't know if you guys noticed in my machine credential there was a Vault a little vault section there as well. Anything that you pass in will leverage vault credentials as well. Cool thing is within Tower, if a vault credential is already supplied along with a machine credential, you don't have to do that. It's just in some use cases you may want to do that as a part of that process, and we are definitely going to include that as well. We don't know yet. We're still working that out. Personally, I would say no, because I don't want to have a Tower CLI instance on each Jenkins slave, potentially, right? But we'll see where that comes. Because really all Tower CLI is, quite honestly, is just a Python requests wrapper that works against our API. So in a plugin for CJE, we could theoretically just do the same thing and not leverage Tower CLI altogether. That's a good point to bring up. So the question was versioning playbooks, and how does that work in a CI/CD pipeline? So within Tower itself, you have the ability to tell a project what branch that you're working off of. In this case, we've pinned ourselves to the Game of Life branch. The cool thing about Tower allows you to say, okay, I have this project, I have this inventory, this job template is dependent on those two entities, right? At runtime, you can actually tell Tower to update the branch. You can actually say, it's not this branch that I want to point you to, I want to point you to this other branch. Then it will update the project, and then you'll also say at runtime, hey, I'm doing this against dev. So then it goes, okay, playbook is getting run against dev, this is the new playbook at runtime, and then you'll see your new stuff. That's a little bit harder to do with core. I mean, it's a lot easier. Tower actually dog foods core, so all of this is being done with dynamic playbooks built into Tower to do the work, more or less. So that's how that works in the backend, more or less. Yeah, you could. Theoretically, you could. Out of the box right now, no. Well, let me think about that. Yeah, it is. So the question is, could you theoretically use S3 as your project endpoint? You could. Let's say you mounted S3 onto your Tower server. So I see some people do that. I myself would never, but you could mount your project directory from S3 and then change it to manual in this dropdown right here. And then everything could be managed via S3, theoretically. I haven't tried it myself. I'm curious now. But definitely, we highly recommend source control management endpoints like Git. We also support Subversion and Mercurial as well. I'm a Git fanboy, so yeah. We don't try to limit you to any location because we identify that you could be anywhere. And of course, as a Red Hat company, we believe in the hybrid cloud as well, right? So you could be running on-prem. Everything could be on-prem, but you might be reaching out to the cloud to do some of your workload as well, right? So we keep that in mind as well as we develop. So, you know, we have a little bit more time. I'd like to open it up. Do you have any general Ansible-related questions? I am just a little bit of background on what I do for Ansible. I'm the Ansible core product owner. What that means is I work with the development team to drive pipeline and strategy for what core is. I'm also the product manager that handles integrations like these. That's why I'm here today. I'm also working on a very cool integration, just a pitch for me. We're going to be launching a very cool integration with a very well-known analytics company in a couple of weeks in Orlando. So that is going to show analytics on this Tower data. So how do you analyze what has been deployed? So I've been working on that as well. So any general questions that you have about Ansible and or Tower? Before anybody asks, yes, Tower is going to be open source. That is the age-old question that we hear all the time. We don't know when, but it is coming. Yes, sir. Yeah, we're actually actively working on VMware right now. We have quite a few VMware-related modules as it stands. We have a vSphere guest module that exists. We're also working on it. We're changing it. We're going to deprecate that and call it VMware guest. That exists today as well, so we'd love feedback on that. But yeah, theoretically, you can spin up a guest machine there. You can spin up instances anywhere. We really don't care where you spin them up. And to that, really quick too, we definitely would love any feedback because we're actively working on that with VMware today. All right, folks. Well, that's actually all I had. Thank you so much for coming today. We'll give you 20 minutes back to go hang out. Come see me at the booth if you'd like.